Welcome to TBN's Joy in Our Town program. I'm your host for today, Dr. Jason Jackson with the Jackson Global Initiative Organizations, and we're so excited to have you. We've got this great topic that we're talking about today. We are talking about women. We're talking about women, your identity, your purpose, and so I'm so excited about that. We've got our guest here that's here today with me, Pastor Robens, who has written the book, Supernatural Woman, Eve the Helper.
Yes.
So excited to have you today.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for having me today.
Wonderful. Well, exciting topic, and married man, you're married.
Yes.
And I'm married as well, and so... and do you have daughters, by the way?
Yes, I have one daughter and two sons.
Wonderful. And I've got two daughters and one son. I'm in a house full of women, and and so with that, any man that's happily married and has beautiful daughters knows that women are dynamic creatures. They are indeed the 2.0 version of us.
Yes.
And so I love the fact that about your book, and I'm glad to get to talk about what we did. Now, just to kind of set the plumb line for that, I think when we look at marriage as a whole, God said, "For this reason shall a man leave his mother and father." He didn't say, "This reason shall a boy leave." He said, "This reason shall a man leave." So the parents begin to establish the son as a man. They say, well, now you're a man, now you can go on and you can leave. They're only releasing a man.
Correct.
And so to cling to your wife. And up until then, the woman has the last name of the father.
Of the father.
And until a suitable man comes, it is from that point where she's covered from the father, and she's supposed to be covered by the husband. And this, we understand, it's a beautiful relationship. But in that, it can be very easy for women to be confused or lose their identity, such as great identity that God has given them. And so how would you describe the woman's assignment as it relates to their job on the earth?
Even before I answer that question, I would like to go back when you said to be covered. Yeah. When the woman leaves her father's household, she was covered by the father. Right. He protects her, he provides in certain ways. So as a man needs to understand that you're not just marrying a woman, but you actually covering her, spiritually, physically, in every other area. Yeah. So when we do workshops in our community, we train our men, if you're not ready to cover her, don't touch her.
Yes.
Because many times in our society, men are ready to touch, but they don't want to take the responsibility of covering.
Yeah, talk to them about covering. Let's give our viewers an understanding. How would you describe covering for those that are watching?
Well, if we're going to look at the Bible, God put man at the forefront of families, and then the wife, and then the children. So the man is establishing a covenant between God and everything that's under him. So as a covering, he's covering her, not just spiritually, not just praying for her, not just encouraging her, not just prophesying over her life and speaking life into her abilities. We'll talk about that in a minute, but covering everything that's under him. So a covering is not just spiritual, but it's social, financial, a protector. So a covering protects.
Yeah, absolutely. So we think of a protective covering, a hedge.
Correct.
That not to be God, because God will still allow certain things to try them in their lives so that they can grow through it. But possibly, I would say that covering, as you're mentioning, is to cover and protect the woman from things that do not need to impact her life. So meaning those things that were not God ordained.
That's right.
The husband is supposed to be in a position where he can ward off and protect those, because we go back to, she came from the covering of a father, and as fathers, we protect our daughter from, as you said, socially, from relationships that help them to identify relationships that may not be productive.
That's right.
Financially, help them to make decisions and guide them, not overrun them, not overrule them, but protect them in the areas that they do and allow them to flourish. And one of the things that I've always said is, covenant is greater than covering. There's a lot of talk in the church about covering. And but covenant is greater than covering, and we are in covenant with God.
That's right.
And because we're in covenant with us, he covers us. And so covenant requires reciprocity, and that's one of the things I love. So you're telling those men that are watching, if you're not ready to come into covenant with this woman, if you're not ready to cover her, protect her, to guide her, then you're probably not quite ready yet to do that. So now, how would you describe the assignment of the woman? What are they guarding?
Wow. The revelation that God gave me, and it literally woke me up in the middle of the night and gave me the revelation on women, and he uses the analogy with Eve. Every time we hear the word Eve, we only think about what she did wrong.
Right.
Not what she did right. So there's many women today, they have lost their identity in their experiences in life. So they are carrying the things that they have done wrong long time ago. And they stop purpose, they stop their assignment, they stop whatever God has for them to do because of something they have done. The woman assignment, God created her to help mankind, not just to help Adam.
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand that. So a lot of women, I don't have a man, so I'm just gonna sit and do nothing.
Right.
No, you have an assignment on the earth. Your presence itself could change the atmosphere. Your presence itself, the way you speak to people, the way you encourage people. When a woman walks into a room, people want to know, who is that?
Right.
Because there is a presence in her that she has an assignment to establish certain things that's on the earth. So there are certain things in Adam he could not do without Eve.
Yeah.
And a lot of men don't want to hear that.
Right.
But there's a lot of men today that are failing. They are failing in life because they would not allow their wives to help them.
Yeah.
And she was created to help.
That's a very good point. She was created to help. So God created a deficit in the man that the woman was uniquely designed to fill. And I say it this way too, that personal authority is interrelated.
Yes.
Personal authority. So the authority and the gifting and the ability of a man is interrelated with the gifting and ability of the woman. Even Jesus, who is God in the flesh, his personal authority was relying upon God and relying upon mere men.
That's right.
If he didn't have Peter, if he didn't have John, people to carry on the gospel for him, then his ministry was futile.
Yeah.
So even Jesus's personal authority was interrelated. And so I think when we get into a space where we do not think that we need someone, let alone a man not needing a woman, and I know I'm sure you share the same sentiment. For me, after having been married for so long now, there's certain things I just don't know what's going on in the house. My wife can tell me where things are, how to go.
That's right.
And it's a beautiful thing. I can focus on what I'm made to do. And so men have to come to an area of trust in that area. Now,
Yes.
So what would you say now? You were an educator for how long?
I was an educator for almost 11 years.
11 years. And you've been pastoring for how long now?
2 years now.
So you've been pastoring for 2 years, educating for 11. As a pastor, you're dealing with marriages, post-marriages, pre-marriages, relationships, breakups. And as an educator, you got to see young girls coming up into womanhood. How would you describe the state of women in identity? So considering the way that the country is structured and media, how would you describe women and their relationship with identity?
That's a very big question. What the devil is doing is confusing their identity. If you look at social media, you look at the TV shows, the women are trying to add to themselves to become something, or they don't feel that they are worth enough, so they think that they need more to do what God has called them to do.
Wow.
It reminded us of Eve.
Wow.
Eve felt like she needed more knowledge, more wisdom to do what God have called her to do.
Right.
What I'm trying to explain to them is this: because God have called you, you have all the equipment to do what he called you to do.
Right.
You don't need to add things to your life.
Right.
So you can be something that you already are.
Right.
So many of them, they are confused and they are trying to get acceptance from people that were never meant to accept them in the first place.
Right, right.
So their identity is in Christ.
Right.
Once a woman identifies herself in her father,
Right.
then she don't need anything else to confirm who she is.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. So you're saying that they're in a strain of identity because they're trying to fill places that they were meant to fill. And I just want to speak to those that are watching that God does not need two things to look alike to make them work together. There are no two atoms, no two grains of sand that work together, and even things that seem to oppose one another, right? They work together. The waters work together with the sun, completely different dynamics, but the sun causes the waters to, the residue of the heat to come up and to come back down as rain. And so that's it. So tell us about, you have a book. Tell us a little bit about the book and what some of the areas that the book addresses.
The book, Supernatural Woman, Eve the Helper, it really is a book that will activate the full capability of a woman, her abilities. Many, and we're talking about social media and the way the world is today, we only put emphasis on the woman sexually.
Right.
So the woman is being raised thinking her abilities is sexual.
Right.
But a woman ability is, she has multiple abilities.
Right.
She, she can give birth, she can have children. In every organization, without a woman, there is no organization.
Sure.
So the woman needs to understand that her ability is not just how she look. It's when she opens her mouth, what comes out of that. Her influence, her ability to make changes, her ability to see things that we may not be able to see. For example, there are times my wife would stop me and said, "Don't do that. Don't go there." I'm like, "Why?" And then eventually I would see why she was saying it. So now, because I've been married for 9 years, I've learned to hear her voice because she has abilities to see things even before I've seen it.
Wow, wow. So you've experienced many situations
Yes.
where you thought you had it and she didn't. Where do you say some of the issues are that she's guided you the most?
In ministry?
Across the board.
Across
in
the
your
board.
life.
In ministry and also in relationships. Now that I have a woman's book, so I am in contact with a lot of women. So she would say, "This woman is doing certain things," or "She's after this." I'm like, "No, she's not." And eventually you would see that she was right.
Right.
So as a man, she's there to help you. Allow her to do what she was created to do.
Right.
And at the same time, a lot of women saying, "Well, was I just created to help him? What about me?" While you do what God calls you to do, you will develop your purpose, your identity, your assignment. So it's not that you are so focusing on the man, but while you do what God called you to do for him, the things that God has called you to do as a woman will come to life. Now, as a man, your assignment is to make sure she births what's inside of her.
Right, that's our assignment.
Because that's what covering is all about.
Right.
And I tell my wife all the time, you're a first lady now. You're not going to be just sitting in the front row just with your hat and look good. No, there are things in you that needs to come to life.
Right.
And it's my job to make sure that you're comfortable in it, that you are equipped in it, because together we're going to do this. Not me by myself, not you by yourself. So this book is really changing the lives of women all over our country. And we have different workshops in different cities where we actually helping women to understand who they are, to walk in their purpose. And now they're telling me, you need to hurry up and get done with the men's book.
Right.
Because what good is it to have a trained woman and have an untrained man?
Yes.
When they come together, he will untrain her because he's not trained.
Wow. Wow. And so we can be so much better if we would just learn how to listen to the women that are in our lives.
Yes.
And respect the godhood that he has established in them. And we just pray for every woman that they would identify the areas of their life. So Pastor Robens, Sherry,
Yes.
Sherry, thank you so much for doing that. Supernatural Woman, Eve the Helper
Yes.
is the book. And so thank you so much for being on. Thank you to our viewers. We're excited to have you here at Joy in Our Town. I am Dr. Jason Jackson, and we're excited to have